Hello everybody, we're going to continue our pumpkin in this video. So this one we did the stem, a little like bottom stem, and then we smoothed it out and added some definition after we smoothed it. So let's go! So actually let me make this full screen. Okay, so right now I am in object mode. I can tell because it's selecting around that whole object, so I'm going to hit tab. Tab toggles between object and edit mode. For the stem, I'm going to be pulling out this very center circle of faces, but that's a little bit too big for the size that I want it, so I want to scale them down. But I also want to keep a nice row of vertices out here. So first I'm going to add a set of vertices and then I'll scale that down. So an easy way to add vertices is this loop cut tool on the left. So if I click that and then hover over, I'm just hovering over parts of my object. You can see it's like suggesting some cuts you can make. You might notice some parts it either cuts off or it doesn't work, and that's just because it's looking for like nice rows of four-sided polys to go around. So I'm gonna do it between that like first and second circle, and then I'm just gonna left click. We have that little like one chance only menu that pops up, but we don't really need to make any changes, so I'm just gonna leave it how it is, and then right away I'm gonna go up to my select option. Sorry, I thought I was gonna sneeze. Just so I don't accidentally make another cut. So once I have my select tool selected, I'm now gonna go in and grab that middle set of vertices. So I'm gonna do a loop select of that circle. So again, loop select is holding an Alt or Option, hovering between two of the vertices going the direction you want, and then it'll grab that entire circle. So I'm going to scale this in, make it smaller, so I'm going to hit S. You can see more than that circle are being affected when I'm doing it, and that's because my proportional selection's on. You can see up there that is highlighted in blue, so I'm going to hit escape to undo that scaling session, and I'm going to hit O, turn off my soft selection, and now if I hit S, it should only move that row of vertices. I think that's pretty fine. And now like this is a little bit uneven, so I could go in and like grab that and scale that in if I wanted. Beautiful. Now second thing, depending on how you scaled your pumpkin originally, yours might not look like this circly. Yours might be pretty jagged, and that's fine. The one thing I do want to fix though is how jagged it is vertically. So I don't want it to be like, I want it to be all these vertices to be relatively flat. So to do that, I'm going to actually scale those in the Z direction, because it's like if I have like all of these dots vertically different from each other, if I scale them in Z, it'll bring them closer together. So if I do S for scale, Z to constrain it to Z, and then start moving that line in, you could see I can either make it more intense, or if I go in, it makes it more flat. And if I just hit 0 on the keyboard and then enter, it'll just perfectly line them up. So there's my flat circle. Again, your circle might be not like smooth looking at it up and down, but it should now be flat from the side. Now I'm going to actually delete these interior vertices or faces from this circle, because I don't need all of this, and it's just gonna add like muddy up the pumpkin. So I want to make it simpler Sorry, I'm trying to crack my neck. Oh, okay. I want to make it simpler by just having that be one big face. So I'm going to actually go up to face mode, so you could switch between vertex, edge, and face up in that up left hand corner. Oh, I should like change my computer's cursor to be like a big like happy thing that shows us around. And all I'm going to do is drag a box within that circle, and it should select all of the faces. So I just held down left click and dragged my mouse. If that didn't work for you, you can tap B on the keyboard, and then that'll have box selected for you. So it's just going to be drag and click. So now I can hit X. I'm going to delete the faces, and then I should have a nice hole, nice big hole in my pumpkin. And now I'm going to fill the hole. Make a hole and fill the hole. So to fill it, you're just going to hit A, select all of the pumpkin, so A for all, and then F for fill. So that fills the hole. Usually when you're using F for fill, you want to kind of do it one hole at a time. Otherwise, sometimes it gets confused of how it should fill the holes. So I'm going to do that exact same thing on the bottom right now, because I'm going to have the little like bottom stem as well. I know this isn't a stem yet. We're going to extrude. Maybe we should do that. Oh, whatever. So again, I kind of want to have like more definition before I scale that row down. I'm going to really quick go back up to vertex mode just because I prefer it. So I grabbed vertex select. I'm going to hover. I grabbed my loop cut tool on that like mid left. Gonna hover over between that like first and second row of vertices, just left click. Go right away back to my select option. And then I'm gonna scale down that innermost circle again. So I'm going to do my loop select, which is Alt left click, aiming between two of those vertices. Again, if I accidentally click wrong, it's going to grab a row in the wrong direction. So I'm just going to grab in the middle, and it should select those nicely. Then S for scale. Scale that down. Probably a little bit smaller. And then I want to do that same thing where I'm not making it jaggedy. It's going to like flatten all of them out. So I'm going to do S for scale. Z, so it only scales it in the Z axis. And if I move close to that origin of, you see that like little dotted line, if I like make it as short as possible, you could see that's like when our circle gets pretty flat. Otherwise I can just type 0, hit enter, and they should be pretty flat. And then I'm gonna move in this row again that I made. So I'm going to do loop select of that, so Alt left click, and then I'm just going to hit S and scale that down a little bit. And then I'm going to delete that innermost set of faces again. So face mode, just make a box, so drag with your left click, otherwise you're going to hit B and then drag, and then X for delete, and then you're going to hit faces. That should leave a hole in your pumpkin, so you could fill it by grabbing all, so A for all the pumpkin, F for fill. So now it should have like nice flat parts on either side. So now we're going to actually do the extrusion. So extrude is another new tool. It's this right here, this extrude region. It's like a cube with a green cube coming up off it. You can either go in and click the button, otherwise the hotkey is E. There's some minor differences like in the future that are relevant between why you would do one or the other, but for now it doesn't really matter. E's like makes it quicker. Otherwise, if I click on it, you can see I get this little yellow toggle. So this is like the difference is with E, I automatically it automatically acts like I clicked on this toggle. Once, if I click on the button to do it, I have to go in and click the toggle and then move that face. A note with extrusions. Extrusions are something that could create a potential issue in the future, especially once we do the smoothing on the pumpkin. If I hit extrude and then I like leave, let's see, sometimes I like can't like mess up on purpose. I think right now I got it. But if you ever have like wonky geometry happening up here after we do this, it could be where this issue happened. I need to like learn how to do this on demand. Oh, I'm keep hitting E. Okay, let me see if I did it. Did I do it? Did I mess up? I think I did. Honestly, I can't tell. I think I did it. I think I ruined it. So it's basically, yes, I did. So you can see I'm like moving vertices around. No, I didn't do it. Damn it. Okay, just kidding. Well, if you ever have a scenario where it seems like this face up here stays when you're trying to move it around and delete stuff, extrusions can sometimes make like a duplicate version of the face without you intending to. So when I actually go in and extrude it, I want to go in right away, and if I go like within my pumpkin, there shouldn't be a face where it initially was anymore. So if you go and you see that it's still there, it's an easy fix for now. You could just like go in and delete it. Otherwise you can do undo to before when you selected the face you're extruding. But you always just want to make sure you are extruding right away with that. Otherwise it's going to cause potential issues later on. Also with extruding something, say I did the height of my extrusion wrong and I go in to like grab that again, it's going to create another extrusion. So if you like weren't happy with the height you did it at, you can just hit G and move it around. So in this case it'd be G and then Z to change the height that I put it at. So you would just go back into like a basic transformation to perfect where you had it placed. So I got those eye sleepies. So let's do the bottom now. So I'm just gonna grab that bottom face. Again, I can either hit E, which will automatically have this toggle selected, or I can hit the extrude tool. And you're either gonna click and drag it out, or you're gonna like left click if you did hit E. And this one is just gonna be like a little nubbins. So that's fine. And again, if you aren't sure if you might have like accidentally like clicked off or like done something where maybe you extruded without meaning to, you can always just undo it right before selecting it, then click on it and then do it again. And you can always like try to go in, zoom into the pumpkin and see how it's doing. Okay, so we have our stem, our little nubbins. So now what we're gonna do is smooth this out. So this is gonna mess up everything we have. We have to fix it. So I'm in object mode. So I hit tab to go into object mode. Sorry, I don't know, it's just something weird with my hair. Tab to get into object mode. And we're gonna use a modifier. So we're gonna be in this right side menu for the first time. We wanna be on that wrench, the little wrench option, and you're going to do add modifier and find subsurface selection or subdivision surface. Subdivision surface. So once you click on that, you should have this little menu pop up and your pumpkin should get a little like a little weird looking, a little smooth. Sorry, I'm just I must have a different version on on my computer here than my one. Sometimes your modifier options are gonna look a different way depending on what version you have. I wonder if my computer didn't update or something. But you should always have this little like subdivisions area. So this, oh, it flipped it. Usually viewport's on top. That's so strange. So right now, like this is grabbing each of those like squares that made up our pumpkin, and with one subdivision, it's splitting it vertically and splitting it horizontally. So it's basically making one face into 4 faces to make it smoother. So right now, this is it with one subdivision. If I increase the viewport to 2, now it's doing it twice. So it goes from like 1 to 4 to 16 squares to make up that one square. So this is the render is usually going to be set to a higher number than the viewport because you want it to be actually smooth, and that final the render is like the final like image of it. So I feel like 2 is fine in the render. For the viewport, you usually just want to work with fewer amount of polys because the more you have, the slower working around is going to be for you. And one other thing, so right now it's like smoother, but I can still see these like squares, like it's still pretty like chonky. So this is just a matter of when you're in object mode, right clicking and choosing shade smooth. So this is just like a visual setting we have. So shade flat is where it's like still sees the faces. Shade smooth is going to smooth those out for you. So we have a smooth pumpkin, but we kind of lost some detail. We lost like those innermost little pinched parts, and then our stem is looking a little sad. So we're gonna want to go in and clean those up a little bit. So I'm gonna hit tab, go back into edit mode. Right after I have hit subdivision surface and go into edit mode, it's gonna make this like skeletal version of your mesh versus what the subdivision surface version of it looks. So subdivided ones usually gonna look a little bit smaller because it's kind of like averaging the points. I think this is kind of annoying to work with, so I usually turn it off. So to do that, you're just gonna hit back on that right side where that subdivision surface like options came up. There's that little box with a highlighted square. That's if I click on that, it'll like toggle off the visibility in edit mode. So this is make it so I just see my like original mesh again. If you do like working with it on, you could keep it on. I usually just have it off, and if I want to check to see how my subdivision is looking, I just hit tab and toggle back to object mode. So I just like toggle in and out with tab to check on it. Okay, so to add definition back, we have to add more vertices. So basically right now it's so smooth because it's looking at like 3 points or so and like kind of like doing a nice like shallow thing between it. But if we add another point in there, it kind of like adds a little bit more of definition to it, to keep that detail. So let's first add it to our stem. This might be when you're gonna see issues potentially caused by extrusion. If yours doesn't like look like a continuous skin over the pumpkin, you might have an extra face in here. You can either go in and delete it, or you can hit in vertex mode, hit A, mesh, cleanup, merge by distance. And if you did have an issue at the very bottom, it should say like 16 vertices deleted or whatever. So that's just if you're like starting to see an issue and you're like, I feel like there's something going up here. So I'm going to add another row of vertices. So I'm going to use my loop cut tool basically for the rest of this session. I'm going to add another row down here in that pumpkin. So I just left click and added it. And I'm going to show y'all a different way of like moving vertices around. So I could always like hit S to scale this in, but you're going to notice it like keeps that like, it's basically adding like a kind of like spike in that line I had before, and I kind of just want to like keep this straight. So scale is a perfectly viable option, but I want to show you a different way of like moving points around, and that's with GG, the GG slide. So once I have this selected, if you accidentally clicked off, you can loop select by doing Alt, left click. And then for the GG slide, if I just tap G twice, very quick, so just GG, you can see all of my points are sliding up and down those edges. So they're not like moving the edge around, they're not moving it vertically, they're only allowing the points, the vertices, to move along the edge that they're on. So I'm just gonna slide them in pretty close to the base of my stem, and you can see if I tab into object mode, it's keeping a more sharp I don't know what to call it, corner now, where it goes from pumpkin to stem. So I'm going to do that to the top of the stem too, because right now it's kind of like making this weird like dome. So I'm going to go in, add another loop cut. So grab my loop cut tool. I'm just going to left click. It's going to put it like, always going to put it in the center. So now I can grab my selection tool and just hit the GG slide. So if I just hit G once, that's going to give you like full control. If I hit G again, that's when it limits the move to along the edge that vertex is on. So I'm going to move that relatively close to the top, and now you can see I have a more sharp stem now. Okay, let's do that to the bottom, that bottom nubbins. So back to edit mode, I'm going to add a row to the pumpkin and then a row to the stem itself with loop cut. So I can loop cut, add one to the pumpkin, loop cut, add one to the stem, go into my selection tool. I have this one selected, so I'm just going to do GG. Slide it up just so it's pretty close, not so it's like touching all the way, that's going to cause some issues, but just pretty close to it. And then let me grab this other row that I added, so I'm going to do loop select with Alt, left click, and then just tap GG and then slide it in pretty close. And then I'm going to hit tab to check, and you can see it kept its sharpness. And now we're going to do that to the ridges. That's the word. Okay. Sorry, I was trying to remember back. So our pumpkin ridges. Because right now it's kind of like a wavy pumpkin. So for this, I'm going to want to add a loop select like row basically along each of those innermost valleys of the pumpkin ridges. So I'm going to, with my loop cut tool, I'm just going to add it to the left of like each of those just to be consistent. So I'm just going to like add one, rotate, add one, rotate, add one, rotate, add one, and I'll be able to keep track of it based off of, so like I'm just gonna add all of them to the left. I mean, you could add all of them to the right. I'm just deciding left, and I'll do it for all of them, just so it's kind of a uniform change. So you can see now, I can kind of tell I did that one versus not doing this one, because this one's like a square, and this one's a set of like two tall rectagons. What is the rectangles? Please help my brain, someone. So I'm just gonna left click, add it. I'm going to hold down middle mouse and shift to kind of maneuver my screen. So I'm either holding down middle mouse to rotate or holding down middle mouse and shift to like pan around. So just gonna slowly go around and add that vertical cut. One thing this does add that you might not like in the future is it is also adding some more definition to your stem. If that is something you want to fix, I can help you out on a more individual basis. So that's all of them. You can see now we have like a row by each of those valleys. So now we're going to go in and do GG slide on each of those. So for this, we kind of have to do each of them individually. So I'm going to grab my select box individually, as I mean like that whole cut, rather than I can't go in and like grab all of them at once and then do the GG slide, because they'll get confused of which direction you want to slide them in. So I'm just going to grab one with my loop select. So hold and alt, aim between two of those vertices, and then I'm going to do GG, slide it in. We'll see how that's pretty tight. Oh, I mean, that's pretty good. Let's do this next one. GG, slide it in. How close you have it in kind of is how more defined it's going to be. GG. So I'm doing loop selects. So I'm holding an alt, clicking, then hit GG, slide it in, left click to place, and then I'm just revolving and or using pan to get around the screen. Maneuvering is honestly like the most difficult part when you're first moving or learning. Moving's the most difficult part when you move. Honestly, that is very true. Okay, and now all of mine should have this like tiny row. So if I hit tab, I should have a sharper definition of those ridges. If you wanted it a little bit sharper, you can move them in more, or you can even try going in and adding a loop cut now on that right side to see what that does. I haven't experimented with that, so I don't know how that'll affect it. It's worth experimenting. So now the last thing for today was just like going in and like doing minor adjustments to our pumpkin. So right now mine is like pretty flat at the top and bottom, and I kind of want it to like sink in with the stem. I might want to like change the thickness of my stem. So right now it's kind of just like a little like column being stubbed into that. So I could either like taper it inward, taper it outward, have it like squish into the pumpkin more. Some of my ridges, my ridges at the school computer, they were like too sharp, so I had to go in and like individually move stuff around. So this is going to be like practicing using your selections and moving and scaling things either individually or with your proportional selection. So say for squishing this stem in, I'm just going to go in and just grab this one row, that innermost row. If I hit G and Z right now, it's only going to move that one row. But I want it to have an effect on everything around it, so I'm going to hit O to turn on that soft selection. Now if I hit G and then Z, you can see it starts moving stuff around. I can increase the scale of it by scrolling my mouse wheel. And we'll just like squish that in a bit. Oh, it might have been too much. G, Z. I'll do like that. Same thing with the bottom, I think, is I'm just gonna grab one of those rows of vertices, hit G, Z, scroll my wheel for how much I want to be affected. I might want a midpoint on my, so right now the stem's pretty like just like straight. If I want it to like curve while it's moving, I might go in, add a loop cut to it, and I can like scale that in or out depending on like what kind of effect I want. Ooh, I kind of want, let's do this. And then I'll scale these top friends inward, I think. Little pumpkin stem. So this is just like me using proportional selection to move stuff around. Again, it's just like a matter of how big that wheel is to kind of like morph stuff around. You could have like outlier things that you want to move around individually. So say it was just like these like topmost points rather than a whole row I want to move around. That's when I'd probably turn that off. So hit O to turn it off and go in and just individually select some of these vertices. So for that, I can't just do loop select. I would have to do the shift add on selection. So right now, if I just want each of those topmost pieces, I'm going to click one, hold down shift, grab the next one, I let go so I can move my screen. Hold down shift, left click, hold down shift, left click, I let go to move, hold down shift, left click, shift left click, let go to move, shift left click, shift left click. And now I can just move those like individually if I needed to. If they were like too sharp like this, I can move them in and like smooth out my ridges. I think that's all we did. So it's just like perfecting our form of the pumpkin. Mine might still, I feel like I want it to be a little bit like chubbier. Move around the stem how you want it, and then we just put in the little pedestal as well. So for the pedestal, the one just like key thing, so we're gonna just like make a little platform for it to like stand on, like here, like this little bird has this little platform. So you can either do like a cube if you want it to be like more on like a boxy stand. I'm gonna do a cylinder just so it like matches the like roundness of our pumpkin. But key thing with this is to do it on object mode. I do have the option to add stuff within my edit mode of the pumpkin, but when I add it here, it's all one form now. Like, oh, it was smooth. I can't see it in object mode because it smooths out the cylinder. But you can see I have all of these like hot mess of vertices now because it thinks I want that cylinder to be like the same surface as the pumpkin, and I want them to be separate things. So I'm going to go into object mode before I do it. I haven't been labeling my thing, so I'm going to go in and label that pumpkin. And then I can hit Shift A. So Shift A is how you add something in. I want to make sure I'm in the mesh option, either add a cube, whatever. I'm going to do the cylinder. We're going to have that one chance only screen come up. This scenario, I want to do it as low poly of a cylinder as possible, just because I don't need to pay attention to like moving any ridges in, and I can rely on that subdivision surface to smooth it out for me. So I'm going to make that as few polys as possible. If you hit Shift A and your cylinder is not appearing in the middle of the screen, so if yours is doing something like this where it's appearing just who knows where, This is an issue with our little circus. It's probably not in the center anymore. This is an easy fix, so don't worry. So let me delete that rectangle or whatever shape. I don't know anymore. So if you see your cursor, your little red and white circle isn't in that like intersecting points of axes, we're gonna hit Shift C and it should zoom it back over there. The screen's gonna kind of like do something wonky, but this is when we do that tilde button. But make sure you don't have that cursor icon selected. Sometimes we accidentally grab it instead of our selecting tool. So now if I zoom and rotate and stuff, it doesn't necessarily do it around my pumpkin. So I can hit tilde, that very top left key. That's not escape. It's like a squiggle. There's another thing on it, but I don't know what that key is supposed to, or is that dirt? No, that is a key. Well, it's the like little swish key. And then if I hit view, oh yeah, I had a sticky note I used for last time. This key, oh, little like swish, should be the top left of your keyboard. So if I do view selected, that's gonna like recenter my screen on the pumpkin. So now that my thing's in the center, I can do Shift A, add in a cylinder or a cube or whatever. I'm gonna have mine at, I think 12 is fine. You can see it's like pretty chunky, but that'll be fine. It'll smooth out. And I can use these if I want to change like how wide it is and how thick it is. I can also do these changes with my basic transformation tools. So either way works. And then I'm going to just move this down right away just so I can kind of tell how it's working with the pumpkin. So I'm going to hit G, constrain it to Z just so it slides down. What did I do? What's this? Do you see that? Oh, I still have that cylinder in there. Oh, let me delete that. That freaked me out. Sorry. What did I do? Okay, so sorry, intermission. My pumpkin was messed up. So G, Z, and I'm gonna have little legs on the pumpkin. That's why it's like hovering. And then I think I want my platform actually a little bit bigger, so I can just hit S to scale it up. If I don't want to scale it in Z, I can say Shift Z to not scale it in Z. And then I'll have my little platform. And the very, very last thing is I'm just going to, oh, sorry, this video is much longer than I thought it was going to be. Sorry. We're just going to smooth this out. So subdivision surface, where I now made it into like a flying saucer. But if I hit tab and go into my edit mode, I can go in with my loop cuts, add a cut there, move it to that top edge, add another cut, do the GG slide, add it to the bottom, and now it should be pretty smooth. The only issue is I see the faces, so that's the thing where if you just right click in object mode, you can choose shade smooth. And this is how it looks in the viewport, so it's still a little bit like chunky, but this is what it's gonna look like in the render. Honestly, I might want to do 3. Yeah, I'm gonna do 3 in the render for mine and then 2 in the viewport to keep it smooth. It's pretty fine because it is so low poly. And I'll just really quick name that cylinder pedestal. So just double click, clickle dub, pedestal. Sorry, I couldn't remember. So there's my nice smooth pumpkin. I could play around with my stem more because the more I'm staring at it, the less I like it. But I'm not gonna take up more time. So that was just like using loop cut, using extrude, and working with subdivision surface to smooth out our pumpkin. So we'll make leggies and arms next time. Have a good Halloween weekend, everybody.